Hi, everyone. Debra Hamilton, ADR, North Carolina, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community that meets every Wednesday. And from the results of our poll, it seems that everyone wants us to continue because they love listening to it later on that week. It's sort of like the podcast they wait for. So I am happy to keep it going every week because I love it. But I wanted to make sure that everyone else loved it too. I am going to mix it up a little, though. I know I said last year, and I can't believe the year already went by, that we would have guest speakers. But this year, I'm really going to make, hi, Sally, I'm really going to make an effort to get many speakers, trust and estate attorneys, different people who do different things with training animals, because we all know that when you make your MAAP plan, it's the plan that takes care of your pets for the life of the pet if something were to happen to you long-term, short-term. So the M stands for the plan you make, making a plan. The A stands for appointing caregivers, which is so important. The second A stands for addressing the needs of the pet. And the last letter P stands for publishing. You need to publish that plan with the people who you intend to have take care of your dog, short-term, long-term. And so I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I know that Sally had a bit of a up and down new year because one of her girls decided to not feel so well, but she is getting better with every day. Thank goodness, little Athena. But I'm glad she's good. How's it going, Sally? Did she eat or is she sleeping?
She's sleeping now, and she actually ate dinner. She's doing better, not 100%. We had a rough go with anal glands being infected, but we're 2 days out now from that, and she's resting, and she did get up and walk and had dinner. So fingers crossed that we're on the road to recovery now.
Yeah, I know. And those antibiotics can really mess up their belly for meals. So we always have to be worried about that. Hey, Connie, good to see you. Long time no see. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I got waylaid with all sorts of stuff toward the end of the year. So I apologize for my absence. But we are right now bracing for another one of the D's, disaster. We have, after you all got Winter Storm Elliott, your bomb cycle on the East Coast, we are bracing for a bomb cycle that is already in Northern and Central California and making its way down to us. We're supposed to get between tonight and tomorrow 1.25 inches of rain, they say, with gale force winds. Here where I am, but other places in the Southern California area are bracing for between 2 to 4 inches of rain in Metro LA, depending upon whether you're in the valleys or the foothills. And then in the mountains themselves, between 4 to 6 inches. And of course, the higher up you go, it turns into snow.
Yeah.
And Northern California already was inundated over New Year's, and lots of flooding, multiple deaths. And already cities up there are declaring states of emergency. And there was this morning, unfortunately, horribly, a ski lift worker at one of the resorts in Lake Tahoe was killed trying to do maintenance on the ski lift as the storm was coming in.
Oh,
so this is non-trivial.
It is non-trivial. It is very important to remember that, you know, those dogs are waiting for you to come home. I pulled a picture out, and I'll have Rose put it up when she sends it up, but I pulled a picture out of someone put for New Year's Eve. Remember, they're waiting for you to come home. Don't drink too much. And they are. Right? They are waiting for you to come home. Don't drink too much. But the guy on the ski lift wasn't drinking. He was doing his everyday.
He was working.
I mean, the football player might have a dog, and he's had a cardiac arrest being hit in the chest. So we don't have that crystal ball that I wish we all had, that we know we're going to outlive our pets, that we're going to be able to take care of them for a short period of time or a long period of time. And we always know that people are going to be around to help us with our pets. I just got off the phone with a colleague of mine in the Irish setter world, you know, and we were saying that there are times when families say they're going to take care of the pet and then they can't because they want to take care of you. And if you've been on this call over the years that I've been doing it, if you provide your family with people outside of the family queue to care for the pets when you're sick, they are going to love you because they're going to want to care for you. I remember when I had my broken ankle, which created this program, or my knee replacement, my hip replacement, my hip replacement, my hip replacement. I know people usually only have 2 hip replacements. I'm an overachiever. I had 3. So every time I had to have people in to take care of my pets. And my husband always said, I want to take care of you. And he was so happy that I had this cadre of friends who would come wandering through to take care of my 9 dogs. So it really is important to make that plan and appoint caregivers. Only 1 or 2 at the most should be family members. You should at least have 1 or 2, hopefully 3, who aren't family members. Because believe me, when I broke my ankle, I had non-family members as my caregivers, and they could not. 2 of them could not help me because one of them had broken her wrist the week before. We were just a clumsy crew. And the other one was renovating her kennel. I mean, when do you ever think that you can't send your dogs to a kennel? I couldn't. So that's why we have this meeting every Wednesday night to let people know what it is they need to do to make sure their dogs, their cats, their birds, their horses, their snakes, these animals, birds and snakes especially, need a certain temperature, need a certain environment. The dogs you see going on the boats in the flooded waters that Connie was talking about, the dogs go in. Cats are not so happy about that. Birds and snakes, yeah, not so much. I mean, it's really hard to do that. So you really need to have a plan, and you really need to evacuate early. When you're getting that word that all of this is coming, you need to make a plan. I know, Connie, you've spoken often about how your car is a go-to car, that you have the grab bag and the go for the 2 Wheaton Terriers that you have. I know Sally has a grab bag to go for her 2 Irish setters. I'm going to check in with Jan. How's everything going with Tonka? And I'm sure you have a grab bag as well.
Tonka's great, but we had a little excitement here on New Year's Day where this fire was so close that it was scary. Like, took 5 towns, fire departments to actually put it out. The fire trucks couldn't get there, and there were like numerous propane tanks that exploded. So it was pretty. And so as I'm watching, I went out at one point to look at what was going on. I'm thinking to myself, I could see the flames so clearly. I thought to myself, I wonder if we're going to have to evacuate. And I met my neighbor the next day, and she said they were out because it was New Year's Day. And I was like, well, you always can call me. Yeah. I would have gone over and picked up, if I had to, I would have picked up her dog, put Tonka in my car, and both of them, and just taken them to wherever. I mean, even if I would have driven around for a while or just sat in the car for a while, nothing would have happened. But yeah, it was pretty
things happen. You can't predict the future. Kaylina, how are our Beagle puppies doing?
The Beagle puppies are doing well. I've been trying to deworm them since the call came on, and I think I got more dewormer on myself than what got in their mouths. But they're doing good.
Oh, good.
And they're all sleeping now.
Oh, good. Yeah, that dewormer will do that. So I'd love to check in with Philippa. You're new, and we're so glad you're here. Tell us where you're from and what pets you have.
Hang on, my printer's going. Hopefully there's not too much background noise.
No noise. Don't worry.
I've got a bajillion poodles. I think I emailed you because I was procrastinating, and since last time I need to update this because I got more names, but I actually went to coffee with someone and was like, hey, if stuff happens, can you look after my dogs? And I'm actually printing the AKC power of attorney authorization now.
Oh, good. Very good. And you have the sign up on your refrigerator, right?
Yeah, basically this goes on top of the fridge, and the sign on the fridge says, look at the folder on top of the fridge.
The purple folder.
Yeah, there's only one folder up there.
Say purple. You're not dealing with the brightest light bulbs in the box. Say purple folder, because they'll look up and go, well, it's a purple folder. Did she mean that one? So say purple folder so that everybody knows that's exactly the one. And on the front of the purple folder, say dog care, dog care. because you want to make sure that it's idiot proof. I mean, truly, I have to say that there are times when I hear of things in my practice that happen to pets and I go, did you have any? Well, I had it out there, but they had to open a drawer. And I go, no, you cannot open a drawer. You need to be able, I mean, they can open a drawer if you tell them to open the drawer. But don't presume they're going to open your wallet or open the drawer. And that's why you need it in your car in a conspicuous place and in your home in a conspicuous place. So then I'd love to check in. Oh, one of our visitors left. Martha, would you like to tell us where you're from and what kind of pets you have? If not, there's no requirement.
Hi, absolutely. I am from New Mexico, and I'm here today because I recently reached out to Carolyn Oliphant, who forwarded me your website. And I'm an attorney. I've recently started my own firm here. I live in very, very rural New Mexico, southern New Mexico, and I'm a Californian, native Californian. And and dogs and horses are both in my law firm name, which is so interesting that she picked up on that. Most people don't even notice it. But excuse me. So at the moment, because in 2018, unfortunately, we lost our home and horse property. It all went back to the bank. However, I still have and love and am responsible for 5 horses, who, range in age from, at this point, 17 to 21. I've owned them all since they were youngsters. And I also, I'm a huge dog lover, but giant schnauzers have a very special place in my heart.
Oh, what terrific dogs.
And thank you. And it's funny because almost no one here has ever seen one except for mine. They're not the running through the goat heads kind of dog. But I had my first one when I was 18. My much older sister was then breeding Rottweilers and showing them, and I wanted to go to vet school, so I was living with her to get experience. And her groomer, who lived with her, also had giant schnauzers, so they had this just awesome dynamic in the home where they had they had giant schnauzers and they had Rottweilers and they had a Doberman Pinscher. And I thought this was all wonderful because our mother was an incredible neat freak. We usually had one small dog. It went to the groomers every 6 weeks. No dirt was allowed in the house. And after I rode horses, I was forced to strip outside and be hosed down. So when I learned I was adopted at 39, it made all the sense in the world to me.
I love that story.
I did not belong to that woman.
I love it. I love that story because my kids, I always told them they were so lucky that their mother liked dogs because they had between 3 and 9, and sometimes with puppies, 22 dogs in their home at any given time. So and dirt was never a problem in our house. I was pretty neat and clean. My husband's a little OCD, so he was really neat and clean. However, the dogs lived a pretty happy life, and we made it out. So I'm so glad you're here, and we'll have to connect offline. I'm glad Carolyn Oliphant put you in touch with me. So for the rest of you, Carolyn Oliphant is a woman who helps attorneys restart their practices if they've taken time off or if they want to shift what they're doing from one thing to another. And she's a colleague of mine, and I've spoken at several of her conferences. And because I have such a unique niche in the world, I only use mediation to resolve conflicts between people over animals. So that's in divorce, landlord-tenant, trust and estates, breeder, owner, handler, veterinary malpractice, although it's very difficult in veterinary malpractice because insurance companies usually require a lawsuit before they'll talk to anyone. I'm trying to change that paradigm. I've only been at it for 13 years. So I'm not giving up. I think I have something to do, so I'm not going to give up.
I just think that's wonderful. Very briefly, my background is in intellectual property transactions. So I was not a litigator. And then, when I decided that I was done, I was only going to train horses and teach people to ride and work with dogs. I was never going to practice law again. And then, life happens. But I'm So when I was reading your site last night, I was thinking that I really wanted to ask you, what do these disputes look like before they come to you? Because as a consumer of all things animal, I have been unhappy with veterinarians. I have been unhappy with other animal people, but it never occurred to me to sue them. So that is just not in my DNA. And, and so, I was thinking, man, I wonder if I could do, because I have for the last several years, I've been looking to acquire mediation skills. Well, I think I'm pretty good. 10 years plus of negotiating, made me very good. And I've done, unfortunately, lots of child custody and things like that, where I'm, mediating as opposed to litigating. But excuse me, but the paradigm is still, litigation, go and beat other people up. I'm not a believer. And I'm just so pleased that Carolyn put me in touch with you, because I was like, wow, someone who does things with animals, because it's always been, it's like, okay, I'm going to somehow at some point, my legal practice and my passion for animals is going to line up. But nothing that I have seen, nothing that I've been exposed to made me think that could be done in a way that I didn't have to sell my soul, which I'm way too old to do.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope you continue. We're here every Wednesday at 6:30. We'd love to have you as
wonderful,
an additional legal voice here, because I don't litigate. And the MAAP plan actually came out of stopping the angst that occurs when someone has a dog and doesn't have a plan for the dog's future. I mean, that after the track, there are people who sell their horses to knackers, and then there are people who put them out in good programs. Well, if you don't make a plan for your horse, and you don't make a plan for your dog, your cat, your bird, your snake, then nobody's going to be able to read your mind. So the reason I put this program together was actually necessity is the mother of invention. I broke my ankle, and I had 9 dogs in the basement. Not that they lived in the basement, but my husband, I told you he was a little OCD. He liked them to eat in the basement, and it was a completely finished basement. It was pristine. It had beautiful stainless steel kennels. It was lovely. And so I said, sure, no problem. Well, I couldn't get down there. And I realized I probably wasn't the only person on earth who wasn't dead yet, but couldn't take care of their pets and needed help. So I created a program first entitled I'm Not Dead Yet, and then morphed into the MAAP plan to navigate the journey your pet takes. So like Philippa's doing, she's making a plan, and Jan has done it, Sally's done it, Connie's done it. Kayleen is in the process, I think, of doing it as well, because when you are the owner of a pet, so you have horses, if you know this as an attorney, so I'm being redundant to you and I apologize. If it isn't in writing, it doesn't happen.
No need.
If you talk to your stable manager, or you talk to one of the girls who has a horse with your horses or whatever, and say, listen, if something happens to me, you'll take care of my horses. And she goes, yeah. Well, guess what? The executor of your will, if they don't have, or the person who is your power of attorney, if you're injured and can't speak or can't, move or whatever, if they don't know, it doesn't happen. Your animals don't get cared for by that person who you intended them to be cared for by. And it's really important that you make those short-term, long-term goals. So for your horses, what I would do tonight, and you know what I'm going to say, guys, right? Because it's like my mantra, make sure you have a note on your refrigerator that says, in the case of an emergency, I have 5 horses at ABC Stable. I have left Mary Jones, Susie Smith, and Ann Jones in charge of their care. If I can't care for them, here's their number. Call one of them and they will take over the care. Do not remove my horses from that stable, because animal care and control can come and take the horses if the stable manager goes, listen, she's in the hospital. I don't know who's taking care of, these people are telling me they're supposed to take care of the pets, but I don't know. So I want them out. You don't want that to ever happen. So you have to write it down. You have to give it to the stable manager. I mean, the stable manager might be one of the people who's going to take care of your horse short term until somebody else comes along. And you want to tell your attorney, because you want to make sure your attorney knows that this is the plan you've made in the case you're not dead yet. Because if all of your plans are in your will, Martha, if they're all in your will, they don't come to fruition unless you die. You have to make sure you die. And if you're okay with that and you make sure you do that, then don't make a plan for short-term care because you're going to die. I don't know that. So I make a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And you also have to let your veterinarian know, because if your horses need care while you're incapacitated, the people who are the good Samaritans taking care of your horse really can't get the care they need. Your vet may, because a lot of vets, if you have a really good friend who's a vet like mine, 25 years, she would treat my dogs, whomever brought them through the door, because she knew, A, I was good for it, and B, if they were my friends bringing my dogs, there was a reason. However, it's so much better to have in the file, and actually in my file with my vet, were 7 names of people who could, walk through the door with a rum raisin Irish setter and she would take care of it, because she knew that they were mine. I co-owned them. And so if they brought them in, they took care of it. Connie, you have your hand up.
Yes, ma'am. On that very point about the vet, this is you're a wonderful straight woman. In certain states, like the state of California, licensed veterinarians are prohibited from treating any pet unless they have the client's authorization with the names, contact information, blah, blah, blah. So when I completed the MAAP plan, I filed it with my vet.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. So Philippa, when you're done with your plan and you have the people who are lined up to take care of your pets, make sure your vet and your attorney and any significant other you have knows of these people so that they know who to call and they know that these people can bring the pets in to be treated. All of the oodles of poodles will be able to be treated by Anne and Sue and Joan because, Dr. Smith has their name in the file. In case of an emergency, I give permission to Anne and Sue and Mary to bring the dogs in, and you have to put their last name and you probably should leave their telephone number just in case, because that way they can verify that it's really Mary at, 555-1212, right? You want to make sure. These are all plans that you make because remember, the MAAP plan is a complete plan that sits outside your will, and it is a directive you can change as the lives of your pets change. So tonight, what I was planning to just touch base on a little bit, and I want to make sure I honor everyone's time tonight for 7:00. Also, I have dinner guests downstairs. So I'm going to honor the 7:00 bell. What you want to do at the beginning of every year, if you've made a MAAP plan, call your appointed caregivers. Happy New Year. How's it going? Now, remember, I'm taking care of your pets, you're taking care of my pets, or whatever the agreement is, whatever's going on. Is everything still okay? Are you still able to take a 60-pound dog? Are you still able to do this, do that, do the next thing? Just check in with them because you want to be respectful of the fact that they have offered to care for your dog, short-term, long-term, and you want to be aware they're not necessarily going to call you that they've moved into a townhouse that only allows one dog and it has to be 20 pounds and you own a Great Dane. There is no way to hide a Great Dane in a townhouse community that only allows Shih Tzus. Not going to happen. Just not going to happen. You cannot pass a Great Dane off as a Shih Tzu. So you really need to make sure that the people who have said that they would care for your pets, you need to check in with them every year. So it's the beginning of the year, great time to touch base. I'm going to call Connie up and say, Connie, how you doing? I know that you said you would take care of Junie in the event something happened to me long-term. I could fly him out to California after, the short-term caregiver, Sally, took him and she'd put him on the plane and get him to you. And Connie would say, oh yeah, no problem. Casey's looking forward to it. He'd love to have a big brother. Or she might say, oh my God, no, I have terrible arthritis in my shoulder now, and I really don't think I can take care. Give them the opportunity to let you know. So you know that you're not relying on somebody who really, really, really wants to help you, but can't. So check with all your caregivers and then look at your plan, because the second A is address the needs of your pet. So last year, my pet didn't need cranberry for urinary tract issues that he was having. He's not really, but just in case he did. And now I'm giving him cranberry. Is that on the address the needs of my pet? Probably not, because I wasn't giving it to him last January. So I have to, write it down and say what he's getting. I know that Jan had spoken last week or the week before that Tonka was having a little bit of an off time, and she was wondering if it was one thing or another. If there's something that you found that's been a solution, whether it's a smell or it's, a touch or whatever, that makes his life better, make sure you add that too. Address the needs of Tonka. I know Sally has so many things that are changing with her 12 and 13-year-old dogs that almost every day she has to rewrite her address the needs of because every day she's got something new. But these are really important pieces of the pie that you're putting together so that, God forbid, there's a short-term transition because of the D's: death, disaster, delay, disease, divorce, dementia, deployment. What is the other one? There's two more that I can't remember, but all the D's that could befall you. You have to make sure you have a plan, and you have to make sure that the people who are going to care for your pet have the most updated manual for caring for your pet, because that's going to make your pet's short-term transition, or God forbid, long-term transition, easier to the new person. And we've also talked about the fact that they're not going to be taken care of like you would take care of them. What we're aiming for is to find someone who the dog, cat, bird, horse, snake is comfortable with, and have that person be the person to care for them. You have to invite them over. They have to know the person, because you don't want somebody out of the clear blue sky coming and taking your dog that your dog doesn't know. It's always better to make sure that there's someone who at least passes their vicinity. If it's the cleaning lady, great. If it's the mailman, because he loves your dog, great. But it has to be someone who is in the sphere of awareness of your dog as the best next person to you. And then, of course, if you have published everything with your vet and your attorney, make sure it's updated for them as well. Because if you're updating it for yourself, you need to hand that updated MAP plan, which sits outside your will, so you don't have to write a new one. It's referred to in your will. It's referred to in your pet trust, because our dogs change. Hopefully, I know that Connie had 3 Wheaton Terriers, and Miss Bama is now Bammy earned her wings, so she might get another one. So then she'd have to update her MAP plan again, and she had to update her MAP plan to say that Bammy was flying around with angels, and so she's not here right now. These are the things we have to do the first week of the year. We really do. It's so important. So if you've made a MAP plan, congratulations. You're the best. I'm so happy. And if you have made it more than a year or 2 ago, make sure you're updating it. If you didn't do it last year, do it this year, because there's a different amount of food your dog is eating. I mean, for the first time ever, Junie threw up his heartworm medicine right in the middle of a conference call. Thank God it was with a bunch of dog show people who were fighting over a contract, because when I said I had to stop to clean up puke on the floor, they all go, okay, no problem. Yeah, because it happens, right? So these are the kind of things that happen. And now, he's 6 years old. I shoved a heartworm pill down his throat every month. Never thought about it. And this time it made him sick. So now I have to cut it up in little pieces, put it in pieces of cheese, a la Sally Anderson Bruce, and then give him little pieces of heartworm to get the whole heartworm medication down his throat. So that's what we do. But that's now part of his address the needs of the pet. So I'm going to ask everybody, are there any questions that you came with or that arose during our conversation? I'll start with you, Connie. Anything?
Well, not questions so much. It's just a couple of things I wanted to add when you're updating your MAP plan, which I need to do this month. A couple of things. First, your dog may be on medications this year, where before it wasn't. Miss Patsy, Casey's mom, who was asleep at my feet after she had his litter, and I spayed her, developed hypothyroidism. And she is now on Synthroid. The second thing is, if you are a show person and you are not an owner handler, but send your dog out with a professional handler, you need to include that person in your MAP plan. and also instruct them fully as to what to do if your dog becomes sick. I have had experiences with friends who have gone with some very well-known and highly regarded professional handlers whose dogs have become sick or injured under the handler's care, and they have not gotten the veterinary attention that they needed.
Yeah.
So, please, please, please be very, very aware of that.
That's part of publishing your MAAP plan, because if you have
Yes.
a MAAP plan for your pet, you need to give your handler that MAAP plan, because you want to outline for them who the people are in case something happens to you that
Right.
they are allowed to give the dog to, and also the type of care you want your dog to get in the event something happens. And it has to be in writing, because then they know, then there's transparency. There's a meeting of the minds between everyone, and there's no guesswork. Oh, I didn't know you wanted me to spend that much money to save Fluffy's life. Well, now you know. And if you want to limit the amount of money to save Fluffy's life, they know that too. Hi, Tonka, honey. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I don't harp on that much, because there aren't a lot of people here who have their dogs out with handlers. But if you give your dog to anyone, you give your dog to a dog sitter, you give your dog to a dog walker, you give your dog to a handler, you need to make sure they are well aware and acquainted of your MAAP plan, what your plans for the dog are if something happens to you, and what your plans are for the dog if something happens to the dog. And that's why this MAAP plan is so great, because you are made to memorialize it. And we're going to do Rose is going to send out a reminder, probably the beginning of next week, not a reminder, but a notice that we're going to do a workshop so everybody can work together. I find working together with people on how to build a MAAP plan makes it easier, because somebody thinks of something you don't think of and you go, shit, I didn't think of that. I got to put that in my MAAP plan. So I'll let everybody know. Jan, anything to add?
Well, I actually added something recently, because the girl, one of the people where I used to live that takes Tonka, and she would be my first choice as for care, actually doesn't live where I am now. So it's not the vet. I mean, she's not taking, if she has to take him to the vet, it's not going to be there. So I actually had to add in the name of my old vet, which is where she is, which is closest to where she is.
Yeah.
I just added an additional name. So now I have, if somebody takes them.
Put her name in his file for Tonka as well.
Right. And so now I have a vet that's basically local to me where I live now. If somebody has to take him short term, and then somebody, if they have to take him long term, then, my friend Eileen actually has the name of the vet, and the vet has her name too. So
Perfect.
Yeah, I updated it.
Kayleen, anything to add, honey? How are you doing on your MAAP plan?
Kind of probably need to start over, because a couple of people I realized they're not going to be, they said they would do it, but they're not. I realize now that they're not going to follow through. So if my primary person can't do, my dogs are just going to be there. So I've reached out to a couple of people, and I'm waiting for them to have time to call me back so we can sit and talk, and I can see if they would be willing to do, because I know they're better and they're more trustworthy. I was speaking with a friend because she had some concerns, so I did tell her about the MAAP plan and your Zoom seminars. She had a question and was concerned. She wanted to know, because she co-owns the dog with the breeder, and she has the dog is in her possession, but she said she realizes if something happens to her, she doesn't want the dog to go back to the breeder, because she knows that the breeder wouldn't take care of the dog the way she would want the dog taken care of. It would just be in a kennel or a crate all day. She was like, what do I do if I'm dead or if I'm incapacitated? I'm like, I don't know. That's why you need to come to the MAAP call, but it gave me something else to think about.
Because that is one of the most asked questions by all of my dog show people who co-own. What do I do? Because my contract says I have to return the dog to the breeder. My contracts say you have to return the dog to the breeder if you can't care for it. You can't give it away. You can't sell it. You can't do anything. You have to give it back to me. And I refund the purchase price of the dog for the life of the dog. So if you paid $5,000 for one of my dogs, which never has happened, but in the event you did, I would return that money, even if you returned him to me or her to me when she was 13, because that's how important and how committed I am to my dog. So Sally, you can get out from under this nut if you return the girls to me. I'm just telling you. But if she co-owns the dogs, have her come one Wednesday. I'll be happy to go over it again. If you co-own a dog, you need to talk to your breeder right away. And you need to say, listen, I know in the contract, paragraph 5, it says I have to return Junie to you because you co-own him. I happen to have 2 people. Sally lives next door and Connie lives down the street. And she, both of them love Fluffy. And, you know, I would love for you to work with them because Fluffy knows them better than she knows you. And she's happy to sign a contract with you that if something happened to her, Fluffy would go back to you. But she's right there. She can take care of the dog immediately if something happens to me. And she's more than willing to work with you to make sure that you have the same access to the dog as you have with me. And that's what you have to do because you've signed this contract that says that you co-own. You've taken care of the dog for the past 8 years, and the breeder has done almost nothing probably, except maybe send Christmas cards. However, this contract is still there and you have to respect it and honor it. And I always say, if you address it up front and you ask for a collaborative solution and you don't take it away from the breeder, but you offer the breeder co-owner a solution that works for them, they no more want your dog back at age 8, 10, 12, 13 than they want to fly to the moon. And if you have someone who is willing to let them know that the dog is well cared for and they get to meet them and they even sign a contract with them, then they'll let that dog go to that person, I would say 9 times out of 10, because it really is very important. Philippa, you have a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I did something similar for my co-owned ones where I was like, you know, here's people that I think would be good with approval of breeder or co-owner or whatever. But yeah, no, if someone had one of my puppies and like they rehomed it without talking to me, I would probably hunt them down.
Yes, hunt them down and chop all their limbs without knowing. I
Yeah.
would too. I mean, I went to court to get a dog back from a perfectly wonderful guy. He was lovely. He was the nicest guy in the entire universe. However, the owner, the co-owner, she told him that all I wanted the dog back for was to breed it. And so he didn't want to talk to me. And I said, well, that's never going to happen because I never allow my dogs to go anywhere where I can't pick up the phone and talk to the person. And so I went to court, and I'll never forget, on Tuesday, I was awarded the dog. And on Friday, I called him and said, can you come up on Saturday for coffee? And we sat down and chatted, and I gave him the dog back. And he said, well, why didn't we do this before? I said, because you wouldn't talk to me. He goes, I was so wrong. And I said, I know, and you know. I said, and there was no way you were going to listen to me when you had heard all these stories that you didn't know were truthful or not. So what you really want to do is you want to be totally above board. Listen, Sally knows Athena and Roxy better than anybody. And so if something happens and she can't care for them, I know that Audrey's there. I know that Hamilton's there. And if she said to me, you know, they would be so much better off rather than taking that long trip to North Carolina to stay here with Hamilton or to Audrey, you know what? I would probably take her word for it because she's living with them every day. And as long as Hamilton and as long as Audrey would sign a document that says if something happened to them, that the dog was returned to me, ultimately what breeders want is they want their dogs returned to them. They want to know that their dogs are living in a safe home, in a safe environment. They can check on it. They can call up, they can get pictures, whatever, so that they make sure the dogs are happy and healthy. That's what they want to do. So it's really important. And I'm so glad you pointed that out, Philippa, because yeah, most reputable breeders will track you down if you give their dog away, because there is nothing worse than bringing these puppies into the world. I actually just lost one of my 13-year-olds, Athena's brother, and it was a family affair because I was hysterical crying as he was deciding to die on Christmas Day. And I actually told Lisa that she should tell him that I really don't appreciate his timing, that it is piss poor, and that I do love him still, but he could have picked a better time of the year. And so, you know, these are the kind of things that she said. It was so nice to be able to call someone, talk to someone who knew him since he took his first breath, and who could make some, you know, laughing, not laughing, but haha, but trying to find some levity in the situation because the creep died on the day after Christmas. He didn't die on Christmas, so I give him that. But it really is important to breeders. So if you co-own, make sure that you speak to that co-owner in a way that is curious and solicitous. Don't call up and say, hey, listen, I'm making all my plans for the dog and I'm giving the dog to Sally Anderson Bruce. Because then they're going to go into orbit and you're never going to be able to pull them off the ceiling. You're just going to say you're putting your plans together and you really want to make sure they're part of it. And would it be okay, since, Fluffy knows Sally, if Sally could be the person who would get Fluffy, but with your co-ownership remaining intact, something like that. And I always have the language to talk. So last but not least, Martha, I hope you enjoyed our little repartee here.
Very much so. It's amazing. Look forward to talking with all of you again. So you do this call every Wednesday
at 6:30 Eastern time. Yes, I do. I actually took a poll last week, and the resounding report from the many responses I got from the poll was, no, we like it every Wednesday because we listen to you sort of like a podcast on Thursday. And we love to hear what you say and what the regulars usually bring to the table. So it's really a great group of people, most of whom are regulars, and really bring their experiences to the table, which is, I can talk, but it's much more important to hear what Connie has experienced and what she's dealing with and what Sally's dealing with, and Jan and Kalina and Philippa, because it brings, as I said, when I do my workshops, where we all come together on Zoom and go into little working groups. I used to do them in person, but now I'm going to do them on Zoom. You get to talk to people and they give you ideas about how to care for your pet the way you really need to. So it works so well. So I'm so glad you're here, Martha, and we'll have to make sure that we connect with each other. Send me a LinkedIn if you can, connection, and then we can chat further. I'm so glad you're back into the practice of law.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
Well, good night, everyone. It's Debra Hamilton, the MAAP Community Call, and I can't wait to see you. And don't forget to listen to the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. It's coming out. But if you've missed any, they're really good. And until next week, kiss your babies for me. Kiss Tonka, kiss Casey and Patsy, kiss Athena, kiss our Beagle babies. Martha, I don't know your dog's names. And I'm going to say the oodles of poodles. Kiss all those oodles of poodles for me. And until next week, take very good care.